Hello, my name is Mr. Hilpert, and I teach construction, welding, and quilting. Today we're going to be demonstrating how to make a log cabin quilt square, which is a great way of dealing with any loose scraps you might have laying around in your fabric box. So, let's get to it. So, to begin our log cabin build, we need to do a little bit of math. Now, whenever I've got to do math, I like to draw out the problem. So I'm going to make a centerpiece. I'm going to surround that centerpiece with strips of a length, of a width, in equal amounts going this way and this way. So I've just drawn, the stack, sort of kind of like that. What this allows me to do is to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 pieces of 7 strips. Cool. So I know I want 7, and I know that I need 7 or an odd number because I was able to look at what I drew and realize that I've got a core, and then I've surrounded that by even numbers of strips. Cool. I know I want to make a 12-inch by 12-inch quilt square. So I know I need to divide 12 inches by 7. If we divide 12 by 7, I get 1.71 inches. Okay. I know that I'm going to have to tack on a 1/2 inch of seam allowance. That's a 1/4 inch on one side and a 1/4 inch on another side for a total of 1/2 inch of seam allowance. So 1.71 plus 0.5 is 2.21. Okay, cool. 2.21 inches is close enough to 2.25 that we're just going to call it 2.25 inches, or 2¼ inches. Excellent. So, at this point, what we need are a couple of quick tools. We're going to need a rotary cutter and our ruler. Now, this ruler is pretty cool because it's got all of the markings on it, but in particular it goes from 1 inch, 2 inches, and this edge right here is 2½ inches. But also this green edge right here is 2¼ inches, which is what we're looking for on our strips. Convenient. So let's go and get the math out of here, and we're going to go ahead and start cutting out strips. And so I'm going to go and use this a white fabric. I think that's going to look good for this project. So I'm going to get it lined up on this grid right here. I'm just going to clean up the edge first. So, boom. And again, I always cut away from myself. And now I'm going to go ahead and use the ruler. I'm going to set the edge of the white fabric on the edge of this green 2¼ inch mark right there. At this point, I can go and take my rotary cutter and I can push away from myself. And that right there, this strip is 2¼ inches across. Now, I want this to be a square because this is going to be the center of our log cabin pattern. So we're going to go ahead and square this up. Use the grid on our cutting mat. That's scrap. Realign this so that our edge is on the green 2¼ inch mark. Boom. And cut over here. This is now going to be the core of our log cabin print or pattern. So we're going to put that off to the side. I've got a bunch of this fabric right here. I've got warm colors, so that's going to be the yellows and the oranges. And I've got a red in here too. And I've got some cool colors, the green and the blue. Well, maybe toss in the gray. We'll see what we want to do there. And so I've got these two contrasting colors, but they also kind of work together. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut these into 2¼ inch strips. So I'm going to go and line this out. If it's too big, you can leave it folded. In fact, let's go ahead and just do that. It'll make it a little bit easier to cut. If we're going to do that, then you're going to line up the folded edge on the grid. My iron is telling me that it's going to go to sleep now. That's okay. And we'll line that up. We'll line that up. You want to take your time and make sure everything's perfect. And we're going to clean up that edge. And now we can go ahead and start working on this. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually flip this piece of fabric around and line it up on that edge. Well, that's not terribly important anymore. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and cut on this side, or line up things on this side. So I've got my fabric lined up on the green 2 1/4 inch mark right there. And now I can cut on my dominant side. Boom, that's nice and easy. Line everything up again. Boom, nice and easy. Now, unlike with that core piece, I'm just going to leave these as is for the moment. Put those off to the side. We'll go in and start working on this next piece. This piece has obviously got a few problems, so I might go ahead and actually hit this with the iron real quick. And I thought I'd ironed everything previously, and I know I did, but every once in a while you might need to go through and just do a quick touch-up. I will say this fabric is pretty dirty. Normally I would be a bit more concerned about this, but this is just an example, and we will put this through the washing machine before it gets used. So there's that too. So now I can put that back over here. We definitely need to clean up the edges here, so we're going to line that up nice and perfect on the corner there, on that line, on this line right here. And we'll drop that right across there. Cut. And I can just flip this over and continue to make cuts. Now I'm going to go ahead and speed things up and go ahead and cut through all this material, and then we'll catch back up when it's time to assemble this thing. So, sit back and enjoy. Okay, so we have 2 1/4 inch strips of gray, blue, a couple of green, orange, red, and some yellows. Those all more or less work together nicely. And of course we have our core strip right here. And so with all these, we're going to go ahead and build out our log cabin quilt square. And again, we're shooting for a 12 inch by 12 inch square. And so what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we'll set up a sewing machine. And we're going to sew all this together using 1/4 inch seam allowance. And by the time we're done, we should have something that's 12 inches by 12 inches. All right, so we've got our sewing machine set up. It's all threaded and ready to go. We've got our fabrics set up and ready to go. We've got an iron set up here ready to go. And we've got our cutting mat and ironing board ready to go. We're gonna need all of this stuff to do a log cabin quilt, because even though it's a relatively simple quilt, it is a very busy quilt as far as work is concerned. However, it's, like I said, really easy to do, because all we're gonna do, let's get a different color there. All we're going to do with this is we're going to take one of our strips of fabric and we're going to sew it to our core strip. We're going to iron it flat, we're going to cut so that they're equal. Then we'll take another strip of fabric of a different color and we'll put that next to there. Cut, sew, iron, cut, and then we'll put the next one on the next one. And that's it. That's seriously the whole pattern. You go out, you keep wrapping around the core, using slightly bigger strips, until you've managed to get to your target size for your quilt square. Nice and easy. We're going to go ahead and start with this white as our core, as discussed earlier, and we're going to go ahead and use, I don't know, this small piece of yellow. I got this little tiny scrap of yellow here, so we're going to go ahead and sew these two together. If this was if we were using fabric with a print on it, we want to sew good sides together. So if this had a print and this had a print on it, we would sew them with good sides together, bad sides out, and that way when we unfolded them and pressed them flat, you'd have good sides together and the pattern would look nice. Remember, when you're sewing patterns, good sides go together. Alright, so line up everything, and it's okay if you have a little bit of overlap or a little bit of excess hanging off the tail end here. That's going to work just fine. And we're going to run this to the sewing machine. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and iron this open again. We're just going to do a quick finger press. So literally we just take your fingers and sort of walk them across the seam right there, the fold right there. And then we can just press down with our iron. There we go. Now that's nice and open. I'll flip this back over. Now take our ruler, plunk that down here, and we want to avoid trimming more than we need, simply because if we do too much trimming, our square will get smaller and smaller, not bigger and bigger. So that gets rid of that right there. So now we have a nice perfect edge there. We're going to flip this over. We're going to set this on its edge over here. You can just flip the man, and I think that's actually the preferred method, but for something this small, it doesn't matter. And we're going to put this aside. We might use this yellow strip later. Okay, so now we have our white core and a yellow strip on it. Let's go ahead and toss on, I don't know, let's do one of these reds. So again, good sides together. In this case, good side is the side with the seam and not this little flap on the back. This is the bad side now. So we're going to flip this side together. I'll take it over to the sewing machine. And trim it up. And it is a good idea to make sure that you are keeping square to the core and not the edge necessarily. So for instance, and this may not be totally visible on the camera, but right now I am lining up my ruler on this edge of the white square. If I were to line it up to the yellow edge, I'd actually end up tilting my ruler over this way and cutting off more. And so we'd actually have a trapezoid and not a square. After a while, this may not be possible, but by then, hopefully, we've got more of a square going on. So let's get this set up. Yeah, there we go. And trim. Okay. So, core, first piece, second piece. These are both warm colors. So next we're actually going to go ahead and use a cool color. So like, I don't know, maybe this blue. This blue's going to, well, that blue would work great, but we have more. So we're going to go ahead and use this blue instead. And I think that's going to look pretty nice right there. So. There we go. And, oh, hey, this green volunteered, it looks like. Let's go and use it. I'm going to be gray. So at this point, you just start looking at your colors. I'm going to try and use cools and warms to do this. And I think we're going to go with the... We're going to go with the gray. So we're going to finish this first course, and then we're going to end up adding 2 more. I'll, of course, speed up the camera for you guys so you don't have to sit through me doing all of that. But this is it. You just keep working around the fabric, the square, in the same direction. Okay. So at this point, it's a pretty good idea to start making sure you know which one you did first, second, third. So you might even grab a pencil and actually start marking this with just pencil. Pencil washes off. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. So the next one's going to go here. And it's going to be a warm color, according to my pattern. So we're going to go with that, this orange. We'll just keep going around like that. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I've got this. We have our quilt, or our quilt square. Starts in the center, comes out one, doop, boop, 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 boop. That all sets up nicely. If I put this on my ruler here, I can see that this edge comes out nicely to 12 inches perfectly. Let's flip it around and see what we get on this side. And that comes out to 12 inches perfectly as well. Now, I made a slight mistake. This quilt square comes out perfectly to 12 inches by 12 inches. Fantastic, wonderful. Nobody's gonna nobody's gonna notice the mistake I made. But for quilting purposes, we actually want this quilt square to come out to 12.5 by 12.5. The extra ½ inch is going to accommodate our seam allowance on this side and on this side. So we're going to have to redo our math, but oh well, that's easy enough to do. But this is how you make a log cabin quilt square. And it looks pretty cool. There are a bunch of different variations of this. So for instance, one of the cooler ones I've seen is you take this square here and you put it down here in the corner and you build your log cabin up this way. Now, but don't bother with this side or this side, you just start from the corner and work up this way. And that looks really slick, especially if like a color gradation. So if you had like a dark blue here and then you slowly got to a lighter blue up here, that would look really good, or vice versa. Anyway, this is the basics of how to do it. Hope you had fun.